All right, folks, let's jump back into it. I think I've tortured you with math enough. We'll get into this a little bit more. Now, ugh, here's the bad news. Okay, this math concept that I just was kind of going over with you with prorations. It's a multifaceted thing, meaning we're just doing taxes right now, but there are lots of other things that are prorated as well in a real estate transaction, like HOA dues and rents if we're selling an investment property. The concept's identical, but understand that rent is paid monthly, taxes are paid annually, and of course, HOA dues could be once a year, twice a year, right? Once a month. It really just depends. And so the prorations can go a little more in depth than that. And of course, the really the worst thing is understanding that there is a very specific type of math problem called closing a real estate transaction math, which is where we will look at a settlement statement in its entirety. And I'm not going to introduce that tonight. I'll introduce it a little bit more later, I'm sure is what I'll end up doing. But understand that in a real estate transaction, this settlement statement has the total debits for the buyer and credits for the buyer, and the total debits for the seller and the credits for the seller. And so all a settlement statement really is where you net those out. And for the buyer, the settlement statement tells us what the cash to close for the borrower is. In other words, how much do they still need to bring to closing to be able to buy this house? And then, of course, for a seller, when you net out their credits and debits, it's what they're going to walk away with, right? The cash due to seller. And so there is math questions where we just give you a bunch of information about a closing, and you've got to net it out and figure out one of those answers, and this could be a piece of it. But I won't torture you anymore with it this evening. So let me go down test taking territory, and then we will get into a new concept after that. Okay, I've already explained this style of test question when we were looking at the Relink book, and it was giving you like an example. And so this one says, essential elements of a valid deed include all of the following except. Folks, those words are critical in a question. And so remember I told you this is called a Boolean style question. Do you need to know that? No. But what's significant about it is understanding that every answer choice has one of two possible values. It's either a true statement or a false statement. And so let's read the question again. Essential elements of a valid deed include all of the following except. That means three of these things are essential elements of a valid deed and one is not. And you were looking for the outlier, right? One of these things is not like the other. And now, except is a negative because you're looking for the one thing that's not. This could equally be a question that says, which of the following is an essential element of a valid deed? It's the same style of question. That means there's three things that are not essential and only one thing that is. You're still looking for the outlier. The one of these things is not like the other. Now, some of you are attempting to answer it already, but let me just show you the test-taking strategy behind this. If you look and you run through, because you have to, you've got to run through all the answer choices. Don't look for the right answer. Go through all the answer choices and you got to pick the best one. So let's say that you look at A and you see acknowledgement and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I don't remember what acknowledgement means. Okay, skip it and come back to it. Writing. Do deeds have to be in writing to be valid? Yes. Okay, so it's not that one. Do we have to have a legally competent grantor for a deed to be valid? Yes. 18 sane and sober for the grantor. Now, D, it says execution by grantor. Execution is a fancy word for signed in some context. So, execution means signed by the grantor. Does the grantor have to sign the deed? Yes. The grantor has to sign. The grantee does not. And so even if you don't remember what acknowledgement means, we've now identified that that's the correct answer. Because if we know that it has to be in writing, has to have a legally competent grantor, and has to be signed by the grantor, doesn't matter what acknowledgement means, you know that's the right answer. And so that's good test-taking strategy to be able to kind of single out and realize what style of question it is. And, pick up on these keywords like accept. Now, acknowledgement, remember, is a fancy word for notarized. Does not have to be notarized, does not have to be recorded. However, if we wanted to record a deed, I told you it has to be notarized in order to be recorded. You cannot record anything without it being notarized. So here's a couple more just wrap up questions here. Let me help you out with this one because I don't love the context of these questions. So this first one says, true or false, to be valid and enforceable against third-party claims, a deed must be recorded. Yeah. It could be valid without being recorded, but in order to be enforceable against third-party claims, as we talk about, it would need to be recorded as well. How about this one? This type of deed implies the grantor has ownership, but does not warrant anything about the property. Be careful. There is an implication of ownership. There you go, Paige. I'm pretty sure I own it, right? There is this implication of actual ownership. Remember the quitclaim? I don't know if I own it or not. That's the difference. This one is a bargain and sale deed. I pretty sure I own it, and whatever I own, I'm transferring to you. So this is a bargain and sale deed. How about this one? Bobby Buyer recently purchased a home for $260,000 from Susanna. In the process, he obtained a conventional loan from BB&T for $200,000. How much was the excise tax paid at closing, and who paid it? Hang tight, Beverly, and I'll circle back. There you go. It is going to be $520, and it's going to be paid by Susanna. Of course, the default is the seller pays it, seller debit, and you have to do the purchase price, not the loan amount. What you got now, Beverly?
So just so I'm right on my notes, I had that a quitclaim does have an implication of ownership. Is that inaccurate?
That's inaccurate. There is no statement that says I own it. It's I don't know if I own it or not. But if I do, I'm quitting my claim. A bargain and sale deed implies that I'm pretty sure I own it. I feel like I own it. I should own it, right? It's not guaranteeing it. So when you're implying ownership, that is a bargain and sale deed. Quitclaim is not implying it in any way, shape, or form. It's I don't know if I do or don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a scenario where the buyer would pay the excise tax?
Yeah, I said that earlier. Everything's negotiable. Like the default, though, and remember this entire class, we're basing these off defaults. You've got to know the default. But if a buyer and seller negotiated that the buyer was going to pay it, it could happen. I told you, new construction does it all the time. Yeah. How about this one? True or false? Person signs a deed conveying property to their best friend. They place the deed in a safe deposit box and do not tell anyone of the transfer. Upon this person's death, the best friend receives ownership of the property. There you go. False, folks. Remember, delivered and voluntarily accepted, and this did not end up being delivered or voluntarily accepted. It's missing that one essential element there that would prevent it from being valid. How about this one, be very careful because well, think everybody. Deed recordation is necessary to protect title against can't help but think that some of you answered so fast that you're looking at the slide printout in front of you, but you know, that's okay. Yeah. Obviously, everybody, folks, if you don't record it, then that means the seller could falsify documents and look like they still own it. Of course, other people who they could falsify those documents to could record a deed. Of course, creditors going after the seller could think they still own it and put liens on the property. So you record it to protect yourself from the seller, from other potential buyers, from everybody. Anyone that could potentially put a cloud on the title, a claim against it, or anything like that. Which wraps up... Whew, crazy section on legal descriptions and title transfer. Of course, Connor Act says certain things need to be recorded to protect against third-party claims. Not to be confused with the statute of frauds. It says certain things need to be in writing to be enforceable in a court of law. Of course, general warranty deed. Think of it like your bumper-to-bumper warranty. Has all those, right, different covenants. Covenant of season, further assurance, warranty forever, against encumbrances, quiet enjoyment. Basically just as far back, forever and ever, amen, with a general warranty deed. Of course, grantor is the person giving the title. Grantee is the person receiving it. Adverse possession we talked about in earlier discussions. That's that type of involuntary alienation where somebody tries to steal your property by way of that suit to quiet title, if they met that ocean criteria for 20 years. Of course, cloud on title, any title defect, and the grantee is the person who receives it. And I think I already said that one. So... this next section, folks, a lot more straightforward in my opinion.